The following podcast contains adult language and themes, so don't say we didn't fucking warn you.
You're listening to Sarah Talk. It's political.
Whatever the condition is in their home country is so bad that they're willing to go through that long, arduous trek to get here, where we've promised this American dream idea. The least we could fucking do is when they knock on our door or help them.
Critical.
Look, whenever there's someone coming after my community, they are either wearing a MAGA hat, carrying a Bible, or more often both.
And positively LGBT positive.
In many states, you can still be evicted from housing simply for being gay or transgender. Stand and fight with us.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
Oh, they're shutting us down. They're deplatforming us. I knew a pretty good Alex Jones once. They're turning the frogs gay.
Okay, you're sleeping in a child's room tonight because there's no way you're sleeping next to me. That is disgusting. I'm going to have nightmares.
And now, from Haines City, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sarah Talk. I am your host, Sarah Austin, with the lovely Becca.
Hello.
God, did we have a long-ass day today.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, it was long.
So I started the weekend with no plans to do anything.
And I had a lot of plans.
Yeah.
They all got jacked.
My parents are still in town, and
This is not their fault, by the way.
No, this is not their fault
totally
at
my
all.
fault, actually. Oddly enough.
That's true. So this morning we got up and walked around the yard and made a plan for how we were going to redo the flower beds out in front of our house. And then we went to Lowe's and we bought all the shit we needed to do all of the things that we had planned. And then my folks showed up and we started digging.
And it would have been fine if we were just digging, but we were not just digging. We were digging into pounds and pounds and pounds of red ant hills.
Yeah.
So it was...
That's a hashtag Florida problem.
Boil water, dump water.
Yeah.
Wait for ants to die. Because you don't want to spray and then dig in it, because then you run the risk of ingesting somehow poison.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Well, and you spray it, and it's topical. It gets the ones that are crawling around on the top.
Sure,
it doesn't
get all the way
then
down.
you go digging up the soil. And anyway.
So you got to flood them.
So we got about, I don't know, we got more than halfway done, I think.
Oh, I think we definitely, if we're not counting the backyard project, that was the whole reason that all of this started in the first place.
It's true.
Sarah says, oh, we're going to get a tiller, and we're going to till this thing up and make a wildflower garden. Oh, cool. Well, if we're going to get the tiller anyway for the day, we might as well just do the whole thing. She made the mistake of marrying somebody who used to work for a landscaper.
Right. It wasn't a mistake.
Oh, well. You made the mistake of asking
for your advice.
For my advice on it.
But
my drink's way over here. I haven't moved into my spot yet.
Well, you did run in
like literally
5
3
minutes to air.
Before the.
I am sunburned all to hell, so I'm wearing as few clothing articles as possible.
I'm really surprised that on the camera
you can't see it.
You can't see it, even though you're wearing this like her shoulder's the color of my shirt.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah,
I'm wearing a red shirt.
It's pretty burnt.
For those of you listening to this post.
Right. Hey, I wanted to mention last weekend we had our first secular social with the Atheist community of Polk
It was
County.
excellent.
We went down to Lake Wales. They had an art festival, and Lake Wales is a small town-ish, and
it was nice.
I was
really
surprised
liked it.
Yeah, it was pretty.
It was out on the lake, so there was a nice.
Yep.
Little scenic view. We walked around and looked at pretty art. There's
and
lots
there
of
were a
different
lot
types
of vendors
art.
set up. Yeah.
I liked it. There was all kinds of different media.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There was some like.
You had wood sculptures and you had potters and you had.
Well, the one that I thought was really cool was the one that did like what the hell is it? It's like the metal thing. Keith, tell me. The metal thing where they carved it with a X-Acto knife. They would like etch it with an etching.
Yeah.
With an X-Acto knife, and then you can use that to transfer.
Yeah.
And make prints out of. And I thought that was
Yeah,
just the level of technique, like little tiny Yeah.
Lots of handmade jewelry.
I am not an artist. Yes.
What else did they have? All kinds of really, really cool stuff. It made me wish I had like a job as an interior designer, so that because most of it I probably wouldn't really like. I like looking at it, but I'm not a knick-knacky collector type of person.
Well, so I brought it up because
sorry.
So we're wandering around in our bright atheist community of Polk County shirts, which was great. Again, that's what it's all about, right? There's visibility. But I think there's to prove our point. Keith walks into one of these booths, and mind you, Keith is a photographer, right? A really good photographer.
Mm-hmm. An artist in his own right.
Right? I said, you should have your prints hanging up.
Yep.
Oh, no. Oh, come on.
I've
Seriously.
seen your work.
Right? So he's like into it, having, conversations with the... Would you stop snorting?
Sorry, Dan.
Conversations with these artists. And so, we didn't stick together the entire time. We kind of split up in 2s and 3s, and then we'd come back together, and then we'd split up again. And Keith walks out of one of these booths with the following pamphlet. If you believe in evolution, read this. This is a production of Answers in Genesis, which is Ken Ham's weird, goofy organization. And they suggest so there's some suggested reading on the back. The Collapse of Evolution by Scott House. Hughes. The Great Dinosaur Mystery and the Bible by Paul Taylor. Dinosaurs by Design by Duan Gish. And, of course, Evolution, the Lie by Ken Ham himself. Oh, and, of course, the Holy Bible. Required reading. So we open this thing up, and here's what it says. The theory of evolution attempts to explain the origin of life, the solar system, the universe. It fails to do so. There are no missing links in the fossil record. And then it goes on to make arguments about, like, Java Man and Lucy or mistaken identity. Those are all fakes. The geologic column does not exist anywhere in the world except in textbook. Polystratic fossils. The law of conservation of... And there's paragraph after each one of these. The law of conservation of angular momentum. So-called simple life forms are more complex than man's most complicated machines. Just look up paramecium, it says, in the encyclopedia. That's your argument? Go look it up in an encyclopedia?
There's a lot of things you can look up in an encyclopedia, including all of the things you're trying to debunk here.
And then here's the end. I'll just read some more. Today's human population corresponds in number to the population that would arise from 8 people getting off the ark 4,400 years ago. If man has been evolving and on the earth for millions of years, this planet would really be overcrowded. No. The oldest living tree in the world is the bristlecone pine, age 4,300 years old. The oldest living coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, age less than 4,200 years old. If the Earth is millions of years old, shouldn't there be an older tree or an older reef?
That's your... Wow.
Yep. A canopy of water once surrounded the Earth. Here's some biblical literalism for you. Read Psalm 148:4 and 2 Peter 3:5.
Give me my Bible.
Okay.
Hold on. Let's go.
Which version would you like?
The old one. The new one. Whatever.
The one that's
Let's
on top.
Let's go to church. What is it?
Let's see.
Psalms, Proverbs, what?
Psalm 148:4.
Let's see if that one still is in this Bible.
This is the one where it talks about the firmament, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's.
I think I remember this nonsense. 148.
4. Yep.
Praise him, O highest heavens, and waters above the heavens.
Yeah. Okay. Aren't Psalms like poetry? 2 Peter 3:5.
But is that just talking about the clouds full of water before the rain?
Sure. Yeah. Wow, look, you can interpret it any way you want.
Oh, okay, so what's the next one?
2 Peter 3:5. Dan says, it is overcrowded. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I like Victoria's Answers in Genesis, Chapter 1. There are none. The end. 2 Peter 3:5.
Yep.
For they deliberately ignore this fact that long ago there were heavens and an earth standing firmly out of water and in the midst of water by the word of God.
Okay, that's all bullshit.
Right. Like...
Here, now listen, he goes on. This water canopy served to protect the earth from harmful radiation and to create a planet that was like a giant greenhouse where things could thrive and grow very large for very long periods of time. That canopy of water fell down during the flood of Noah as 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Are you kidding me?
No, that's rain clouds.
Yep.
And then...
Right, and then it evaporates and the cycle... Never mind.
It's called the water cycle. My 9-year-old sang a song about it when he was 5.
Oh, God. Oh, Keith's convinced. Damn it, we lost one.
Oh, man, darn.
Reptiles never stop growing.
You're going to have to give us your shirt back.
No, stop. Reptiles never stop growing. Therefore, did you realize that dinosaurs were just very large lizards that lived with man?
What?
Since the lifespan of everything in the early days of this earth was so great, up to 900 years, then the lizards just grew and grew and grew. There are, in fact, reports of some dinosaurs still alive today. Those are chickens, and they would be evolutionary descendants of dinosaurs. There have also been found dinosaur tracks and man tracks side by side.
Oh, my gosh.
Keith says, I was bummed when I found that in the guy's booth because I really liked his art. After that, I wanted to go back and fart in his booth. No, I think you wandering in there in a bright atheist shirt is...
Yeah.
Again, like,
I think
that's kind of the point of the story is you know, this is an example of how Christianity is in your face all the time, lives in privilege. People think nothing of, you know, spreading their beliefs
right
in a non-religious event, venue, context.
Right.
Right. And so we too must be there.
Ooh, we should get a booth at an art festival and have Keith's photographs on display, but also...
Can we do like living art? Keith has a Jesus costume we could probably do something with.
Yeah.
Thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was last week, and that was lots of fun.
It
was. I have some listener mail.
Mail, yay. I still got to write a song for the mail.
A couple weeks ago, we talked about the student here in Polk County that was arrested after refusing to stand and salute the flag. After the teacher escalated the situation, telling him basically, if you don't like it here, you go back to Africa. An attorney for the 11-year-old said he was filing a civil rights complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Other details I don't think we had when we first talked about the story. The 6th grade student also asked to call his mother and wasn't allowed.
Oh.
And the principal, Brian Andrews, reportedly took the student by his arms, telling him to calm down, which is when the student said, I'm going to get you all fired.
Mm-hmm.
Making the threats that... Whatever.
Right.
Now, in the student resource officer's statement, or school resource officer's statement, also said that the student repeatedly told the adults in the room not to touch him. The student said over and over again, don't touch me, don't touch me. So, let me just say, if my kid wants to call me...
And you don't let him?
You best damn well call me. And get your damn hands off of my child.
Especially if my child has said, don't touch me.
Right?
Because now I'm looking at what's my, what is my, what's the word? If he's said don't touch me and you've touched me, now you don't have a consent, is that assault?
Right.
I mean, I guess it could be if you have a good enough lawyer.
Right. Sure. And another detail in the story, I guess the local news sources are reporting that that the dean was going to allow the student to leave with his mother. And that's when the resource officer stepped in and was like, actually, no, I'm arresting him.
You should have been arresting that teacher, too. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, and I've been fighting fights on the Ledger's comment feed.
Polk County at its finest.
Yeah. Oh my God, these people. Anyway, hopefully something will come out of that civil rights complaint because, like, obviously we have a temp agency, right? We talked about this.
Yeah.
Providing substitutes who don't know what students' constitutional rights are, and that's a problem.
A huge problem.
A huge problem.
Especially, it's not like he was just doing this because it was a substitute.
Right,
he
does it all the time.
It's something that he does all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people that do substitute teaching. And so I know that there are kids who do things to, when it's a substitute,
sure.
they just try to push buttons and get away with shit. But it wasn't. So did she just think that's what was going on because she's a substitute and she's had it happen before? But still, if it's his right not to do that, you should know that.
Right.
If he's, doing other things that are out of line, that's one thing.
That's
but this
different.
Is just,
right.
Yeah.
But again, like we talked about, we had a massive teacher shortage going into this school year.
Yeah.
And so, it's no wonder we farmed out the substitutes to a third party because we can't even staff the full-time teachers.
Yep.
The staff teachers.
You can't even staff bus drivers.
Right.
Like.
So anyway, the point of this was we got a message from a listener.
Oh, yes.
And our listener says, I just listened to your podcast. I just would like to say my son is in 6th grade, and he does not stand for the pledge. His social studies teacher got mad and was spouting all her religious Republican views at him and other students. When my son got home, he told me. I called the school and had a talk with the principal. I talked to other parents about it, and they also called to complain. The principal had a talk with the teacher to the point he stayed a whole week in her class to make sure she did not bring up her Republican or religious views. I say Republican views because she went on a tangent saying how Democrats are communists and they're ruining this country. Why is a teacher having this kind of conversation in the classroom at all for any reason? Oh, sorry, I had your mic off.
The dog is missing. I'll be back.
Oh, okay. No, she was laying in her bed when I came in here. Well, so to this listener, right? Like, I'm sorry your son isn't getting the neutral learning environment that all of our students should be getting, right? That all of our kids deserve. But also, let me say, keep an eye on that teacher because, God, that was a couple years ago. We talked about Diana Volatich, I think was her name. She was running a white supremacist podcast called Unapologetic, I think. But on her podcast, she was talking about how, like, she spewed her views in front of her class, and like it was like that was part of her teaching style, and would also talk about how like while she was doing that, like it raised flags at some point, and principals and teacher or administrators came in and sat in on her class. But that she would like completely change who she was and teach completely differently when the administrators were in the room. And then once they left, she was like, well, see, now nobody's watching. I'll go back to what I was doing. So I'm just saying, don't let your guard down. Keep an eye on that damn teacher and let us know how it's going. I'd be interested. I'll be sad. I would be surprised if that teacher doesn't reoffend. That's all I'm saying.
We had one at our school that it wasn't our kid's teacher, it was another teacher. But has been twice now, 2 years in a row, apparently, from what I heard. Just, what was it? She was a preacher's wife, preacher's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And kids were coming home with Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for God and Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
And like the only reason that anybody thought anything of it was because the kid's father and mother were non-believers, and they were like, you don't even know about this stuff. Who's telling you to write this?
Right.
Oh, the teacher told me. And then the teacher came back and said, oh, no, that's what she said she wanted to write.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right.
Right. So, yeah. Happens all the time. And
Yep.
you just have to.
Yep. And again, just, stay on it. God, if you can, if you have the luxury of time that you can go, register to be a volunteer at the school and spend some time there, I think that's the best thing ever. I'm so thankful that you are at this point able to not have to work full time, so that you can be involved in school and that we do know what's going on.
Well, this is like a teacher that we got 2 kids coming up, and it's a higher grade, and so now I know. Okay, now I know who to. But I would never have known that if I wasn't at the school in the gossip ring and not. I mean, you just, as a parent, your ears have to be open, your eyes have to be open. And it's unfortunate because I know that a lot of parents don't have that luxury, and that's when things slip through the cracks.
Yeah, right.
So.
Right. And this is what drives me up the fucking wall, and this is why I get wrapped up in these goddamn comments. These people who go and bitch and moan on the fucking Facebook comments, right? What's the first thing they say when this story broke? Whoa, what terrible parenting.
Right.
Right? Oh, the mother must have taught him that.
Yeah.
Taught him what? His constitutional rights?
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
You know what is funny? I didn't even tell you this, but when I was in the classroom last week, the day I went on the field trip, and I was in the classroom at the bell ring, and the pledge starts, and everybody's doing the pledge, and our son wasn't doing it.
Really?
It was very interesting.
Didn't know that.
I didn't. And I asked him afterwards, I said, hey, buddy, why didn't you say the pledge? He says, because I don't want to. I'm like, okay.
Good.
And
Good
nobody
for him.
bothered him, and nobody, he stood
stood
up, and
right.
he was respectful and quiet, and nobody said a thing about it. And I was like, good for you.
Yeah. But there you go, and good that we know.
Right.
And because if it does become a problem.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. So but the first thing these people do, and they go in their on the news article posts of this story, it was all, let's blame the parent. It's the parent's fault.
Parent shaming.
Parent.
That's all people do.
Right. And that's fine if you had a society where parents could be involved and choose not to. That would be one thing. But you live in a capitalist society where you can't just go be involved in your kid's school. God, wouldn't that be great? But you know what? Some people are working 2-3 jobs just to put fucking food on the table.
And let's add to that. So you can't. Okay, I can. I have a little bit of time. We're fortunate that I have time, but we're also fortunate that we could afford to pay the money for the background check that is required to step foot in the school.
Right.
Like, because that's the
true.
school doesn't pay for it. The parent has to pay for it.
Right.
And it's every 5 years. It's like $50, and it's not a lot of money, but you have it. I just feel like sometimes I wonder, like, if and there are schools around here that don't want parents involved. They don't even have PTOs, and I think that's such a foreign concept to me. And I'm really glad that we're in a good school.
Yep.
Where they're encouraging parents to come. But I think, wouldn't it be interesting if the school could somehow pay for that so that they could have parent involvement with the parents that can't afford it?
Right. Hey, here's an idea. Wouldn't that be a great tax benefit? Wouldn't it be great if we could take some taxpayer money and, like, put that towards parents who can't afford to sign up to be volunteers?
How about those red light cameras?
God damn it. Okay. While we're talking about Florida schools, there's an effort underway to expand voucher programs. A push by Governor Ron DeSantis to use public taxpayer dollars to fund private schools. DeSantis has asked lawmakers to allocate tax dollars to help clear a waiting list of, he says, about 14,000 kids for a private school scholarship program called the Tax Credit Scholarship. Currently, 100,000 students in Florida receive this scholarship. In response to this, and In response to grave concerns that we aren't funding public education like we should, the Florida Education Association Teachers Union launched a new ad campaign called Fund Our Future. Their 30-second ad describes Florida being ranked near the bottom nationally in public school funding. Florida teacher pay ranks 45th out of 50 states. And next year we could be looking at a teacher shortage of over 10,000.
And with all the new land and developments and people relocating, and I mean, we've got like 7 or 8 neighborhoods going up, like huge neighborhoods, just in like a 4-mile radius around here.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to the high school that's going in next to our kids' school, I saw that like Lake Wales is trying to open up a couple of new what it was specifically focused on, like bilingual.
Oh,
I think is what I read.
I didn't see it, but
I mean, how are we going to open new schools when we don't have teachers for the schools we have, and we don't have enough teachers for the kids that were in these schools,
and there are just going to be more and more families moving in. You can only hope that maybe some of these families that are moving in have parents that are teachers. I don't know. I mean, and I don't know why they're building all these new neighborhoods, to be honest. I never understand it. I don't get it.
DeSantis said what he's trying to do is give equal opportunities for poor kids to be able to attend private schools that are out of reach to anyone but the wealthy. Which I kind of understand. I kind of understand that. If we were poor religious people and we wanted to send our kid to a private religious school...
Go on.
Okay. But shouldn't it be on the private schools to offer some sort of financial aid or scholarship or assistance?
Yes.
Not taxpayers?
I was going to say that. Or the church. You know,
right?
I grew up in a poor religious house. You know what we did? We homeschooled.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean,
I'm saying
homeschool if you want, but not religious.
But I'm saying I just feel like the only poor people that are going to want to put their kids in private schools are going to be the poor religious people. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not. I mean, poor secular people. Like, I know plenty of people that homeschool their kids not for religious reasons.
Sure.
You know, but I just can't.
Well, DeSantis made this argument, and I've seen people argue this too, that basically if a student is being provided education, then it's all public education, right? Regardless of which school they go to. Yeah, regardless of which school they go to, whether it's public or private or charter or magnet or whatever, if a child is going to school, that's public education.
No. It's not.
So I think to really understand this, you have to understand what public education even is. You know, some people bitch that they don't have kids, but they still have to pay taxes to go to public schools. Or that if they choose to put their kids in a private school, they shouldn't have to pay public school taxes on top of that.
Can I bitch that I've never been in prison, but I still have to pay taxes that go towards police work and prison work?
Right. And in the same vein, like, you pay for those services so that you are safer.
Right.
Right?
I mean, it's an investment into the community, to this.
Yeah. So in the same vein, right, and some of you be prepared for maybe some surprises, the public school system exists because we collectively understand that a well-educated population is necessary to all the things in society that concern us. It's necessary for our cities and states and nation to succeed by training up the next generation of thinkers and doers who will ultimately lead us out of the capitalist rat race dark ages and into a new age of enlightenment where hard work isn't the single most important goal in life. God, could we get to that place? That'd be nice.
Right?
They'll invent the products that change the way we build our homes and interact with each other and do business, as we have seen with countless generations before. And so, because this is in the interest of the general public, the interest of all people to invest in a well-educated population, we all pay into it. Surprise! That's your scary socialism.
I have to dovetail into this. Dan just made a comment, and he said, back in the early 2000s, when I was a prison correctional officer, I was offered a teaching position twice. I couldn't afford the pay cut at the time. And I'm just
Pay
cut to go teach.
Fuck.
But you know what? If we paid our teachers more and maybe our correctional officers less, maybe, I don't know, then maybe we wouldn't need as many correctional officers because the teachers would be doing a really good job of educating those kids well enough that they stay out of prison.
We do so much like that, though. There's so many things that we do.
Screw up?
No. That we're reactive on.
Well, yeah.
Right? We don't do prevention. We're not great at like there should be mental health clinics inside every school. And I've said before, anyone in America, whether you're a citizen or not, whether you have the ability to pay or not, you should be able to walk into a mental health clinic and say, "Help me."
Right.
And be able to get that help on the spot without paying a dime. And if we did those things on the front end, then we wouldn't need all of the BS on the back end.
Right.
We wouldn't be jailing as many people.
Yeah.
Because you would catch them early.
Well,
and
we
help
could cut
them.
half of the people that are in prison out of the whole scenario if we would just legalize marijuana. Especially in Florida.
That has been put into the legislature. They're going to consider that this
they need
this
to
session. But
do something.
Don't forget, Florida's all Republicans, so
well,
that'll never pass.
So stupid.
So when I consider private schools, the simple analogy, right, is public schools should be publicly funded, private schools should be privately funded. Go get a corporate sponsorship if you want. I don't care. But the problem that so often comes up with private schools is that they're either for-profit, right? They're about making money, or for-profit. Religious indoctrination. P-R-O-P-H-E-T. For-profit schools.
Oh, wow. That was bad even for you.
Well, you know. And so, in order to get access to the taxpayer purse, you would have to follow all the same rules that we set for public schools. At which point you'd be a public school and not a private one.
Right.
You'd have to meet the same grading standards.
Yeah.
For example, our tax dollars should not be going to a school whose even secondary focus is on indoctrinating kids into little Christian soldiers hell-bent on bringing souls to Christ. We don't allow that sort of instruction in publicly funded schools for constitutional reasons, by the way, and that's why they shouldn't get my tax money.
Yeah.
And you should feel the same way, Christian, if you're out there listening and you're thinking, I should be able to get vouchers to send my kids to a private Christian school. You should feel the same way. Maybe a Muslim group wants to open a school. Ooh. How would you feel about that? Oh, they're going to make little Taliban terrorists. That's how you would feel, and you know it. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't want your tax money going to a Muslim school.
True story. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Anyway, if you're in Florida, it's time to contact your lawmakers and Governor DeSantis. DeSantis is pushing the Florida Equal Opportunity Scholarship Program, and Republican senators are pushing their own voucher program called the Family Empowerment Scholarship, and both of those would dip into the same funds that currently go to traditional public schools. So, time to get on the horn and call up your legislators. Yikes. Florida legislator and demon buster Kimberly Daniels is back in the news.
Ooh, demon buster.
Self-described demon buster. Daniels, who spearheaded the In God We Trust displays in schools, a useless law protecting students' and teachers' religious liberties that are already protected in the Constitution, and now is pushing for requiring every public school in the state to offer elective classes on the study of the Bible. These, of course, are all Project Blitz initiatives. Mm-hmm. Well, she's going to miss the first day of the legislative session that starts Tuesday.
What?
No.
Why?
No, not because she'll be off demonstrating her healing powers at a children's hospital, but because she's scheduled to record an appearance with my friend and yours, Pat Robertson of the 700 Club.
Holy fuck.
Now, that's what she said anyway. A representative for the representative said she's recording just for CBN News, which is the network that 700 Club.
Oh, right. Okay.
And will be calling attention to her proposed legislation to install Christian class in Florida public schools. And remember, Kimberly Daniels was just busted for failing to list her church properties on 3 years of required annual financial disclosures from 2012 to 2014. And the matter has been referred to ethics from the ethics committee. The ethics committee finished their investigation, and she copped to it. And they have now referred that to the House Speaker, Jose Olivia, for disciplinary determination. So we'll see if she gets any kind of anything.
She'll get a slap on the wrist.
Probably.
Don't do it again.
Well, of course, now that we've invoked the Crypt Keeper, we have to talk about him.
Great.
Pat Robertson bitched and moaned on the 700 Club Monday about that Catholic foster agency in Philadelphia we talked about months ago. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Just a refresher, the city passed a non-discrimination ordinance that would require religious-based adoption agencies to comply, no exemptions, meaning they can't refuse to adopt to gay people or non-Christians. Catholic Social Services threw a fit, arguing that they would have to just shut down rather than comply, which, yes, you're hearing correctly, is a choice they would be making, not something the city is forcing them into. Let's see what old Pat has to say. Maybe.
The incredible thing about the homosexuals is they are willing to destroy lives and destroy the whole fabric of society so long as they and their weird way of doing sex is legitimized.
Weird way of doing sex.
In the butt? Is that what you mean, Pat?
Can you do me a
Doing
favor?
sex in the butt?
I'm sorry. I have a project for you.
What?
Remember the Trump thing you made?
Yeah.
Can you make a Pat Robertson thing talking about how the incredible things about homosexuals? I think that would be a hilarious
I
bumper.
could do that. Yeah.
Bumper. I don't know. Anyway.
You got me off track.
I'm sorry.
I forgot what he said
He
now.
said the incredible thing about homosexuals,
and the way
I
they
got
do
lost,
their sex.
and the way they do their sex.
Well, their weird, weird whatever sex. Pat, you've been alive for 700 years. Don't tell me you've never tried to put it in somebody's butt. I know you have.
And he's married, right?
Yeah. Look, any way this man does sex is a weird way of doing sex.
And if you don't get weird, you're certainly she's not getting anything out of it. Just saying. All right.
That's what they want, and they will to take away everything. They'll destroy marriage. They'll destroy families. They'll destroy in this case, the foster children. They're willing to tear down the entire edifice in order to have the majority of people recognize the way they do sex. That's what it amounts to. And
no, that's not at all what it amounts to. They're not trying to destroy lives or the fabric of society. They're not trying to destroy marriage. They're trying to have a marriage. They're not trying to destroy families or foster children. They're trying to adopt them.
I just can't get past the way he says the way they do sex.
I know, it's so funny.
Does he say that to his wife? Hey, do you want to do sex now?
Probably. Yeah. But look, the people who appear to be destroying the lives of foster children is Catholic Social Services, who would rather close down than adopt to gay people. They would rather children live on the street than with gay people. They would rather children age out of the system in a foster home or than be raised by gay people. That's how it speaks. I know they would argue, no, that's not what we mean.
No.
But that's sure what it looks like. They're putting their bigotry of faith over innocent lives. And they'll be the first ones to, you can try to abort a baby. Oh, the innocent life of the baby. Adopt these kids. Adopt them out to anyone who is qualified and capable of providing a loving home, period.
Religious or otherwise.
Yeah. Whatever.
Because, you know what? When it comes down to it, I may not believe in what you believe, but if you want to have a baby or take a child and it doesn't have a family, it takes a special kind of person to do that to begin with. You know?
Right.
I look at these kids who go through hell and back.
Yep.
It's so sad.
1%, ladies and gentlemen, get it, 1% of the country, from what we understand, are lesbian, 2% are homosexuals, and that is all. And yet that 2% and 1% are taking charge of the rest of us because they're so vocal and so authoritative, and they apparently dominate these legislative bodies.
Literally every minority group is fighting for equality. This is the most white male privileged position I have ever heard. Oh, the minority, they're trying to control us. They're trying to keep you from being jerks.
They're trying to keep you from controlling them, which you have been doing for...
Right.
Like, it's not...
What is that saying? Equality looks like oppression when privilege is lost.
Yeah.
Something
like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that.
I think if Christians begin to speak out and insist that if some politician goes along with the gay agenda, that they're going to be voted out of office. And once they get that message, they'll start saying, well, we want to listen to the majority of the people in our society.
That's literally what's happening right now. If you look at these state houses across the country and this Project Blitz legislation that's being passed left and right, you already have control of the legislatures. The homosexuals do not have control of the legislators. We don't. We have a few who are either queer themselves or are sympathetic to the plight of marginalized groups in general and the queer community specifically. But
that's not control.
Our government is not representative of the people, in that the majority of the people in office are white, male, Christian. You already have them.
Until they do, that small minority is going to be dominating everything we do in every aspect of our lives.
You know, replace always, anytime this comes up, replace the word gay or lesbian or trans or queer, whatever you're talking about, with black. Mm-hmm. Oh, the black people are just trying to, control us and take over our legislatures, and they want the government to, give them the rights to have children and give them rights to sit at a lunch counter. Or
use a water fountain. Use a restroom.
If you pull out the gay identifier and you pop in a racial one, oh boy, does this look like 1940.
Sad. It's sad.
And it's the same sad arguments that they made.
And it's the same sad, stupid, pathetic people.
Yeah, it is. This
or
is
their ancestors,
or
their
moral majority right here.
Yeah, he's been at the.
Mark my word, it's going to happen.
Oh, prophecy.
Oh, my
Mark
goodness.
my word. Let's do there's Pat Robertson to get you angry.
Yeah.
On a Saturday night. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
Maybe. And, I have bad news for you before we...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Save it for the end.
What?
Save it for the end. If you tell everybody now, you'll just bring us down.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to take a break.
Oh, okay.
So the bad news is, I worked a 4-day work week this week and last, and that's not giving me much time to sit down and put a show together. There's no Florida Man. We'll be back. You're listening to Sarah Talk.
You let Jesus into your heart. Now it's time to bring him into your home with Flat Jesus. Take photos of Flat Jesus in questionable situations and share with the hashtag FlatJesus.
Take pictures of Flat Jesus watching the Smurfs on TV. Hang him on a cross. He won't mind. Flat Jesus on your 3-year-old's toddler potty reading the Quran? That's fucking hilarious. But don't wait, apostates. Download your very own Flat Jesus right now at SarahTalk.com/Jesus. That's SarahTalk.com/Jesus now for your free Flat Jesus. The Bible says the earth is flat. Maybe Jesus was too.
Hello, my friends. This is Sister Mary Atheist of the Church of Religious Avoidance down here in Bumblefuck, Alabama. Now, my friends, my people, my brothers and sisters, do you feel lost? Do you feel that swelling urge to be a part of something better? Well, let the word of Sarah Talk help you. If you've never known the word Sarah Talk, learn it, live it, love it. Can I get an amen? No? Good, 'cause we don't do that shit around here. My friends, we must all remember that the good word of Sarah Talk doesn't happen for free. So get yourself over to patreon.com/SarahTalk and help us spread the word. Plant that seed and help it grow into secular, peer-reviewed empirical evidence for the good of all. In the name of the Sarah, the Becca, and the science-based podcast, amen, hallelujah, and holy shit.
I was feeling so alone.
I'm glad I asked for help. Whatever it is, ask for help.
If you're thinking about suicide or need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386.
Hey everyone, this is Dan Hogan from Mesa, Arizona, and thanks for listening to Sarah Talk Podcast. You know, you're privileged to listen to the show. Not everyone gets to listen. I mean, the dead are not allowed to listen. They don't know what they're missing. Do you know why? Because they're dead. But if you're alive and listening, thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Welcome back to Sarah Talk. Okay, maybe I should not have mentioned that there's no Florida man before the break. Becca quit the show. And now more people are going to stop listening or watching because Becca quit the show. Okay, joke's over. Listen, all I'm saying, and Becca was confused. She's like, you only worked 4 days. You had plenty of time to do it. I do this at work.
I knew that too.
I mean, I do some of it at work.
Yeah, well.
And then I spent all day today digging, so moving plants.
Oh, Victoria says we should raise money, buy ad space on 700 Club and play Flat Jesus, Sister Mary Atheist.
I have a feeling they would turn us down.
I think so.
Yeah. Before we get back into the show, we want to thank all of our wonderful patrons. Your financial support keeps this thing going, and we appreciate it very much. For as little as $1 an episode, you can join our great patron family at patreon.com/SarahTalk, or you can support the show for free by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or Google Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show, and please share the episodes around with anyone who you think would enjoy it. Even your Christian friends.
We have some.
We do.
Believers that listen to.
The next clip here is a little weird because it's like a clip show.
A clip show?
For the first time ever, trans service members testified before the U.S. House of Representatives, which is 2 hours long. And NBC News took the liberty of chopping that down quite a bit. So there's a 5-minute clip show of these individuals speaking to the House Armed Services Committee in opposition to the Trump administration's transgender service ban. And I think these were fantastic. So that's why we're going to include them. And I may stop and start just to try to identify voices if you think that would be helpful.
Transgender service members who are with us today, you are the first 5 transgender service members ever to testify openly in front of the House of Representatives.
In 2010,
The Navy changed the policy preventing women from serving on submarines.
This is Lieutenant Commander Blake Dremen.
And in 2011, Congress repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This opened the opportunity for me to be selected as one of the first women to integrate submarines. And for the first time, I did not have to hide my sexual orientation. Each time a mission or capability irrelevant barrier was removed, I rose to the occasion.
Has my transition made soldiers uncomfortable? Absolutely not.
This is Captain Olivia Stellick.
On the contrary, during my recent deployment to Afghanistan, soldiers opened up. They talked to me and told me things they never would have before, things that they said they've never told other people. I asked them why, and the consistent answer was that they valued my authenticity, my courage in being myself. It allowed them to do the same thing.
During a field exercise, my first reconnaissance staff sergeant said, "I've never met anyone who has more balls than you, Wyatt. I will deploy to the stands with you, and I trust you with my life."
There were never any issues that arose due to being transgender.
This is Captain Jennifer Peace.
And between the time of the initial announcement of open service and then the tweets by the Commander-in-Chief, the fact that I was transgender never came up. It wasn't something that needed to be discussed, and it is only since this issue has arisen again that it has even been talked about in my unit.
I would like to state unequivocally for the record that there is no medically valid reason, including a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, to exclude transgender individuals from military service.
This is a doctor, Dr. Ehrenfield, who they brought in as a
expert.
Yeah, thanks.
This is the position of most major medical organizations, including the American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association, all of whom disagree with the Department of Defense's rationale for a transgender ban.
My non-deployability time during my transition was at 7 weeks over the course of 3 years. And that only includes 3 medical procedures, none of which happened during a training event, one of which happened in between patrols and before our pre-deployment training time on the submarine. That is less time than a shoulder surgery that is usually elective.
Sir, I can tell you that my transition has had absolutely no effects, not only on my ability to deploy, but also on my ability to get work done. When I had to go to therapy, for instance, as a matter of kind of routine course of care, I was able to rearrange my work schedule to still cover the same number of patients in a week.
Basically, I was on light duty for 7 days, basically a less than what you would get time off for an ankle sprain. And I had my orchiectomy. And pretty much I expect the same for everyone, service members, that it's mission first.
Officers and non-commissioned officers in the military are regularly rated as some of the most respected professions in the United States. So now if transgender people can no longer join the military, if they can't be awarded meritorious service medals, Purple Hearts, if they can't deploy around the world, if they are told they are not good enough to serve the United States military, then now the entire United States sees trans people as somehow less.
I've been told 3 times that something other than my capability to do the job was the reason I wasn't worthy of an opportunity. First, for my gender assigned at birth. Second, for my sexual orientation prior to transition. And third, for my gender identity.
I was actually enjoying a little bit of a vacation when I woke up to the tweets from the President of the United States, and I think it was in that moment that I, for the first time, really questioned, why am I still waking up and putting on this uniform when time and time again I am told that I'm not able to serve? Why should I wait around to deploy and risk my life again when the people that I am serving do not even want me here?
Captain Peace there is
Spitfire.
Great speaker,
yeah.
too. Like, just,
I almost lost faith in my superiors due to the fact that they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what to follow. There was no orders up top. And regardless of the fact, I still did what I needed to do.
Transgender people should be allowed to join the military. People who are in the military should be allowed to seek health care for whatever issues they might have, whether it's trans-related or not. And those of us who are serving openly should be allowed every professional opportunity that every other soldier is.
Yes.
Preach.
Right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
That was really good. Yeah.
Like, if you had the 2 hours to sit and watch the whole thing. So from the reporting that I saw, then later in the day or the next day, whatever it was, the Trump administration came in and spoke before the House Armed Services Committee 2 in support of the Trump administration transgender service ban. And I guess the Armed Services Committee was like you could tell they wanted to hear from the trans service members, and they were falling on their side. And so I guess when the Trump team came in and started spouting their lies, the committee was like, "You guys are terrible."
Oh, man.
Like, that's the one I want to see. I want to see. I want to go back and find that.
Find some clips of that.
Yeah. I want to hear them being put in their place. Speaking of being put in your place, the United Methodist Church put some gay people in their place this week.
Yikes. That was...
United Methodist Church had the opportunity to join us in the 21st century and be on the right side of history.
But why would they do that?
And they didn't. During a special 4-day conference in St. Louis, members voted 53 to 47% to adopt what was called the traditional plan.
That's a pretty slim
It is.
margin, though, so...
It is.
They're not all evil.
Right. Yeah, it's a tight split, for sure.
Yeah.
But they rejected a plan called the One Church plan that would have allowed individual congregations to decide where they stand on marriage equality and gay clergy.
Well, see...
So this is the United Methodist Church as a church. We're all going to do the same thing.
And I feel like that's... Maybe it's just because I'm not... I feel like that's probably the right way to go.
Oh, yeah, it should be all or none.
Because that's how you get... that's how you get in Christianity in general. Well, my church is very accepting.
Right.
But, that's where it gets confusing. Because how do you know until you go?
Right.
And
then, generally you can tell, like, by the denomination.
Right.
You're like, well, these are accepting people and the Catholics aren't.
Right. So,
There are roughly 12 million United Methodists across the globe and about 7 million living in the U.S., though I'm expecting that number to start dropping any minute. And that's my challenge to you, any Methodists listening in. The world is looking at faith leaders and church decisions with a critical eye, and choose carefully, because the history lessons will only be friendly to one side of these issues. If you're still a Catholic after all the revelations of child sexual abuse and nun sex slaves, you're enabling the church to continue. If you're still United Methodist and you claim to love all people despite their sins, but you go back to that church on Sunday, you're signaling you don't actually care about the LGBTQ members of your church. And I know that somebody's going to try to argue with me, like, shouldn't a person stay and try to affect change from within?
No, not when you're being oppressed and ridiculed.
Right.
Would you?
No.
Like,
I don't want to be where I'm not wanted.
I mean, I hate that. Or I hate that argument.
Yep. When an organization is set up in such an authoritarian way, the likelihood that you'll be able to make a change like that is even extremely rare.
Right.
If you don't have a direct line to the Pope, for example, you're not going to get Catholic policy changed so that the police are called the minute an allegation is made.
And even if you do have a direct line to the Pope, that doesn't mean anything, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that do, that have, and...
and they're the ones diddling boys. In a democratically designed organization, where your voice and vote can make more of an impact, okay, maybe, right? When we saw what happened in 2016 inside the Democratic Party, the answer was not throw the Democratic Party to the curb. The answer is stay and make a change. But again, it's because people are elected to serve in the Democratic National Committee, and it is a more democratically structured organization. It's not a religious institution where you have an authority figure at the top who makes all the rules.
Well, and when you're talking about a church setup, too, like that's another thing I think about. Just as a woman in a church, you're already put on a lower pedestal. And then when you have the stereotypical views of the homosexuals, well,
and
they're
the
girly.
Sex that they do.
They're girly boys, and you know every old man that's whatever. That's what they say. What?
I was a little too strong on the rub.
But you know, like that's the stereotype. Is it gay men are just girly boys?
Right.
So if you already have a problem with women having any kind of authority, you're certainly not going to take any opinions out of a little girly boy.
Right.
So if you're an LGBT member of either sex, in the church, you're
right. Right. But again, like religion is set up so that you obey the leaders, not the other way around. If the organization was set up that such that the
members could,
that the members, the leaders were to not obey necessarily the wishes of the membership, if they were to do the will of the members. If you had an
annual meeting and you had a quorum and you could vote on church policy.
Well, which is what they did.
But who are the people that can vote?
Right.
Is the question.
You got it.
If it's just these certain people, or like when you have an HOA, if you own a home, you can go vote. So I feel like if you're going to go to a church where that's what they do, if you're
going to have a thing like this, anyone who is on the rolls of a United Methodist Church anywhere on the planet should get to cast a vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not difficult.
Well, it's time to leave this church, too.
Yeah.
Moving on, Democrats in Colorado and New Mexico are pushing legislation that would pledge their 14 collective electoral college votes to the winner of the national popular vote, regardless of who wins the actual state. So, imagine, I don't know what the statistics were, but imagine Donald Trump wins New Mexico, but the national popular vote is, Hillary had more votes.
Right.
Then New Mexico would say Donald Trump does not get our delegate votes. Hillary does. Because more people in America voted for her.
Yeah. I think that's the logical.
There's good. Okay, good's not the word. There's arguments on both sides, though, because, there's an argument to be made for, okay, well, notice how they only campaign in certain states, right? There are some states that matter.
Yeah.
And then there's Utah, right?
Right.
Florida's a state that matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure.
Right?
You always want to.
And that's based on this electoral college system. Now, the argument is, if you do away with that and you just go straight to a popular vote, right? If you were to jump this even and do away with the electoral college completely and just count heads one for one, everybody gets a vote and whoever has the most votes wins. If we did it that way, then politicians would only be campaigning in New York City and Los Angeles.
Very highly populated.
Exactly.
Right.
And they're going to ignore the rural areas.
Sure.
So the argument for all of this all along has been to give Utah a voice. And Montana. Fucking Montana. What are there, 10 people and 100 cows out there?
Maybe 12 people in Montana.
But that's the point. The point is to give the more rural folks an actual voice in the process.
Like, I get both sides of it, but the problem I will always have is it just sucks when the math doesn't add up.
Yeah.
If the popular vote is different than what the electoral vote is.
Right. Why should Montana's 100 cows, have more weight?
Well, they do. 100 cows weigh way more than 100 people, I'm sure. You ever seen a
why
cow?
Why are their votes weighted differently? That's all I'm saying. That's the problem that I have with the system. Is that that different states are weighted differently.
It definitely is old, archaic, and doesn't work. And that's the thing I think about is when it was created, we were not nearly as overpopulated as we are now. And that's why
works a lot different in 13 fucking colonies.
Right. But exactly. So it needs to be restructured and reimagined, if you will, and make it work for the population that we have now.
Chat agrees. Abolish the electoral college.
Yeah, I'm totally get rid of it, but you can't have a you can't not have a fail safe.
Right.
Which is, I think, what it was supposed to be.
Right. Oh, we talked about that during the election, right? That part of the electoral college was to help prevent Donald Trump from happening.
Right.
Here we are. Now, before you get excited,
obviously,
before you get excited about Colorado and New Mexico, this would only go into effect if the law passes in enough states to constitute an electoral majority, or 270 votes, the same number needed to win the presidency. Okay? So far, 11 states, California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington State have joined this effort, along with D.C., which gets us 90 votes away from 270. So if enough states buy into this that account for 270 votes, then there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Colorado's legislature passed it, and newly elected Governor Jared Polis has indicated he will sign it. Of course, not a single Republican supported the bill.
Of course not. They don't. Yeah, they'll never do that. They're a lot smarter than we think they are.
Right. There's more people in Phoenix than in Montana. Thanks, Dan.
Crazy. I love it.
4 times more. I still argue 10 people, 100 cows. Roughly, give or take. Give or take.
Victoria says, what about after deducting cows? Dan says,
yeah,
around 12. That's what I said to begin with.
Here's a fucked up story for you. Timothy Morrow, an herbalist, red flag number 1.
You mean his name wasn't number 1?
An herbalist in California and founder of a pseudoscience company called Common Sense Herbs.
Oh, jeez.
Red flag number 2. Started treating a 13-year-old in 2014 for diabetes after the boy's mother had attended seminars by Morrow about herbs. He told the parents to give them herbs in lieu of the insulin a doctor prescribed. In August of that year, Morrow went to the family's home after the boy became severely ill from his type 1 diabetes. And as you have surmised, statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office said, quote, shortly before the victim died, Morrow told the victim's parents not to give him insulin, but instead to administer the herbs that he was selling. The victim suffered cardiac arrest and died the next day as a result of complications from his diabetes. The medical examiner determined the victim would have lived had he received proper medical treatment. End quote. So first, this post-expert truth, whatever garbage timeline we live in, we've got to fix this. We have got to start trusting the experts again. These actual doctors aren't just robots acting on behalf of Big Pharma or whatever crazy bullshit conspiracy theory you buy into. They're people who went into medical healing because they care about people and they spend a fuck ton of time and money learning how to actually treat what ails you.
And the people that have created the medicine that treats what ails you have done the same.
Right. And yeah, they may make a fuck ton of money off of it. But it exists, and it'll heal you. Some snake oil salesman pushing some herbs, that's not medicine.
The most fucked up thing about all of this is I know that a lot of people, well, I've known a lot of people who go to the more natural route because it can be more cost effective if you don't have good insurance. And you don't necessarily need to go get a prescription from a doctor, and you don't have to pay a doctor and then pay. I get it. I get it. However, you got a dead kid now.
Yeah.
And this is not the first, and it's not going to be the last.
Nope.
And just fucking take your kids to the hospital. Take them to the doctor. Do what the doctor tells you to do.
Yep.
And these stupid... I'm sorry. Diabetes has touched more people in my life than I would like to even think about. But I cannot... Okay, I'm done. I can't.
Well, earlier this week, Morrow was sentenced to a 4-month jail sentence, 48 months of probation, and 1-year child abusers treatment counseling program.
The fuck is that even? 4 months in jail, really?
Right.
And then 48 months of probation.
Yep. And a year of this abuser treatment counseling program. As well as a $5,000 fee plus restitution to the 13-year-old's family for funeral expenses. Right. There's the cost of that life is innumerable. You can't put a value. It's not like you can say, oh, well, if you give me $50 million, boy, that'll just make up for the loss of my kid.
Yeah.
There's no such number. It doesn't exist.
I mean...
He also has to remove the publications and videos that promote this garbage non-science treatment, and has to clearly label all of his products now. I didn't say what the label had to say. It probably should say something like, this is not medicine, this doesn't work. Right. Exactly.
Like, a supplement is not a cure.
Right.
If I have an iron deficiency, I need to fix that by taking more iron. But if I have an insulin deficiency, I have to fix that by putting insulin into my body. If my body's not making insulin, I have to give it insulin.
Right.
You can't get insulin from anything other than insulin.
You mean there's not an insulin herb?
No, there's not.
Come on.
Now, there are
just
herbs
boil it down into some tea.
There are herbs that might help certain people with other symptoms that come from diabetes, but if you're not producing insulin,
you need
insulin. And I mean, this is basic.
Yeah. Moving on. Finally, this is the last story of the night. And again, I apologize that there's no Florida man. I'll try to do better for you next week.
Well, what was it? Somebody way back in the chat. I'll find it, and then you go ahead in the last story, and then
Are you going to interrupt my last story, though?
No, I'll do it at the end instead of Florida Man. I'll tell you the comment, and
Okay.
it's about Florida Man.
Finally, I want to talk about the draft. Dan, 22440-SARAH. Or whoever, 22440-SARAH, 224-407-2724. So let me first say that I'm thankful that enough people voluntarily choose to serve in the military so that a draft hasn't been necessary since 1973. At the end of the Vietnam War, when the Selective Service announced there would be no further draft calls. Thank you for serving so that I didn't have to.
Yes.
Military service is truly not for everyone, and it sure as fuck isn't for me. Though I understand the argument for numbers, right? In the case of, world wars, you need to have the bodies to send off to war, right? So conscription is in the news this week because as long as the Selective Service has been a thing, only men are required to register, not women. When you turn 18, men have to register just in case shit hits the fan and they need bodies, and the double meaning there is intentional. In 1980, 5 years after the registration for the draft had been discontinued by presidential proclamation, President Carter reactivated it, asking Congress for the funds to start registering young Americans again. But he also recommended that Congress amend the act to permit the registration and conscription of women too. Right? So Carter tried to fix this. Congress agreed to fund the registration, but only for men. Ultimately, the question of whether the boys-only club of the Military Selective Service Act violates the Fifth Amendment came before the Supreme Court. In Rosker v. Gilbert, the Supreme Court sided with Congress's determination that any future draft would be characterized by a need for combat troops, and because at the time women were not allowed by the military to hold combat roles, requiring only men to register for the draft did not violate the Constitution. Fast forward. It's 2013, the Department of Defense officially lifted the ban on women in combat, and in 2015 lifted all gender-based restrictions. Anyone can serve in any role, gender need not matter. So, last week, a federal judge in Texas ruled that a male-only draft now does violate the equal protection provisions of the U.S. Constitution. That case is National Coalition for Men v. Selective Service System, brought by an advocacy group, National Coalition for Men, which raises awareness of discrimination against men. Pause for effect.
Wow. Talk about privilege shining through.
Now, while one could argue that obviously if women can serve in any role but are exempt from the draft, that could be seen as discriminating against women.
Yeah.
But the NCFM made arguments like, men still face prison, fines, and denial of federal loans for not registering or not updating the government on their whereabouts. Women, they argue, should face the same repercussions as men for any noncompliance. Which I suppose is also true, but it kind of comes at it from a different angle than I would come at it from. The argument of if women can serve in all roles, and the only reason that they weren't part of the selective service in the last time we tried to do this was because they couldn't serve in combat, but now they can. That whole thing makes sense to me.
Right. Wow.
But strictly on constitutional grounds, since women can now serve in any role alongside men, the male-only draft violates the Constitution. Obviously, I don't want to litigate whether or not women should serve in combat roles, or even whether or not men and women should both be included in the draft. I'm more interested in, do we really need conscription registration at all still? Do we need that? I don't know. I'm not, this is not my wheelhouse, but I also have feelings about it. I feel kind of way, like.
You want to hear an interesting story?
Yes, please.
Dan says, I joined the military at 17, but was still required to sign up for the draft, selective service, when I turned 18 and was already serving.
Well, ain't that special? There's your government in action right there. Boy, if that ain't bureaucracy, I don't know what is.
I don't understand. Dan, what the heck? Oh, man. Oy. All right.
Victoria said, what a double standard. Anyone can serve, but women aren't good enough for forced service. Fucked up. I agree. Maybe, so...
Well, the only forced service a woman is eligible for is forced service of her husband.
Particularly if you're in the church.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to be... I would love to hear from someone on the other side of this that can help me. I'm willing to change my position, is what I'm trying to say. My position right now is I don't like the idea of the draft.
Yeah, I don't either.
I understand why it has been necessary in the past. I don't like the idea of it today. Part of that is because had they called me up, Bone Spurs, Canada.
Right.
I'm not going.
But
I'm one of those people during Vietnam that was standing on the thing with a sign and fuck you.
But here's another way to look at it too. I mean, this is back in like years ago.
Yeah.
There weren't as many people, and now
we're overpopulated now.
But nowadays, if you sign up to go into the military, you're getting an education. Back when Grandpa went to Vietnam, he was going to blow people up and shoot people.
He got a helmet and a gun.
He got an education, all right. But now, when you go into the armed services, the whole goal is that when you come out of it, you've got an education to go and have a career at home.
Right. David brings up a good point. Draft the drones. Right. So combat, as it was in the last time, I mean, okay, Iraq area notwithstanding, really. But, like, between the last major war and
Desert Storm?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We have advanced our military. Right? We're talking about a day and age when your army was over there and my army was here, and we were shooting muskets at each other.
And there was a
ravine, creek.
What's it called? Yeah, something.
The river ran between us. Right. So, and then we've evolved to, now we have drones and tanks and helicopters and fucking missiles that we can shoot from miles away and strike a target. The mechanics of warfare are different.
Well, sure.
And so I don't know if
the goal of war now is different than it was.
Now, if there were to be a third world war, if there's some, this nuclear edging that Trump and Kim are doing.
Wouldn't surprise me, but
we're all going to be nuclear wintered if that happens anyway, so it won't matter. But I could see a scenario where we might need it again. But for the most part, in the wars the way we fight wars today, I don't think you would need it. Again, happy to be proven wrong. Happy to be hear another point of view.
And I mean, the only thing that makes me think it might be necessary down the line is when we bring our troops home. Like there was like massive casualties the last few years overseas. So how many are going out, and how many of those are actually coming home?
Right.
Able to go back and redeploy. Because you come home and you can't go back, then now we've got to find a filler. So if we're just sending people off to slaughter, we're going to eventually run. You know what I mean? Like, that's what worries me, is if you're sending people into combat needlessly and they're getting killed or wounded to the point where they are no longer any good over there, then you're going to have to bring them back in a box or with, no limbs, and then replace that person to fill their, you're always going to, it's a revolving door, I guess, thing. So it scares me.
Yeah.
When you think about it that way, it's really morbid, but that's the severity of the situation sometimes.
So where I got off track, I was talking about how selfish I am, in that if I were to have been called up in a draft, I would have been a big fuck you. And there's a thing that's changed a bit too, that baked in everybody's a patriot thing, where God and country and flags and Jesus, and if it's time to go step up and serve your country, we were all, for the most part, with some exception, but willing to do that. And today, I don't think you would have the groundswell of nationalism that comes along with we're sending our boys off to whatever. So there's a selfishness in me for my personal situation, where thank goodness I'm too old, even if they wanted to.
Well, and I think,
and I'm trans, and they don't want me either.
I think about my kid in the other room.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want that for them. Like,
nope.
If he wants chooses to.
You just talk. I'm going to turn my microphone off. You just talk.
If he
you
chooses
say the words that are in my head.
Then, as much as I would hate the idea, you got to be supportive.
Yep. Right.
But if it
it would be his choice.
Yeah, it's a totally different ball game. Like he went through this whole thing where he wanted to be an astronaut, and that scared the crap out of me. Super into space. I don't thought of my kid getting on a space
fucking
shuttle.
Cool though.
That would be fucking awesome. But then he saw a space shuttle explode.
Yeah.
And he went, you know what? Maybe I just want to work in ground control.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Do that.
Still get the good money. And right.
You're on the ground. Like,
Right.
But, I mean, as a parent, it's just terrifying to think that. But on the same hand, it's a completely different feeling if it's him choosing it over being forced.
Yes, right. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Dan is educating us in the United States military. Stop loss is the involuntary extension of a service member's active duty service under the enlistment contract in order to retain them beyond their initial end of term of service date and up to their contractually agreed end of active obligated service. So you're force extended. That's some shit.
Yeah. And again.
And if you're one of these people that's going in, like, and your intention is to serve the minimum, get your grant money to go get a college education by working in the military, and then get out at your time and go get your education and go do something else with your life. If that's, and then they pull this stuff on you, if you knew that going in that was a thing,
right?
How many people does that deter?
Well, and then how many people get that force extension and then end up not coming home at all?
Right. Right.
And if I'm that person's family,
yep.
Knowing, they were going to come home this Christmas, and then, they got extended until February, and then some crazy lunatic car bombed their convoy, and now they're not coming home at all.
And you shouldn't even have been there.
And they shouldn't have even been there? I feel like you're asking people to put their lives on the line, and I don't think that I would, as an American who says, these people are putting their lives on their line to protect my freedom.
Yep.
I don't want them there if they don't want to be there.
Right.
Because I feel like that's when mistakes happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's not always a mistake that causes it.
No.
But
right.
I feel like if you want to be there and you're there 100% and you're not sitting there, man, I could have been home right now. Like, and I know I know that's probably just in my head because I never served, and I'm sure that our servicemen, when they're in it,
different mindset.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah.
But it's still, like, as a family member of people that serve and have served, I just think, God, I couldn't imagine having to go through that, and then how much of a psychological mind bend it would be to go, oh my gosh, they weren't even supposed to be there, and now they're not coming back at all.
Right.
I don't know.
So here's where I want to leave it for you tonight. And you can send us an email at producer@SarahTalk.com. Call and leave us a message at 224-40-SARAH, 224-407-2724. I want to know this. Obviously, if you're listening to this show, you agree that men and women should be treated equally, and so if one is conscripted, the other should be conscripted. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Sure.
But my question to you is, do we keep the draft? Should we consider getting rid of the draft? Even if temporarily? Again, in 1975, the draft had been discontinued by presidential proclamation. Right? So we've done it before and said, okay, times are pretty peaceful. We have enough people who have voluntarily, whatever the reasons are, let's just put some people's minds at ease and not do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then you can reactivate it should all hell break loose.
If you need to, yeah.
Right? Or do we need to keep it to just because you never know? I don't know where I fall completely on this one.
I feel a lot of things about it.
So, producer at SarahTalk.com.
Should just have a whole show about it. Dan can be our special
yes.
Special informant.
224-40-SARAH, 224-407-2724. You can call, leave us a voicemail. You can text that number as well. All right, what do you got? Then let's wrap the show.
All right, so earlier we talked about the private schools and how they can pretty much teach whatever they want, and so their kids don't get much of an education.
Yep.
So Victoria said, at least the lack of education is leading to some great Florida man stories, which we're going to hear about next week.
Yep. Provided I even pull some out of my ass for next week. We'll see.
I'll try to do it on the down low so that I have a backup plan.
I had one, but I was going to write it up today.
Yeah. And we didn't.
But I was busy today.
Florida women out in the garden today.
Yes, exactly. All right, well, hopefully a Florida man again next week. I have more yard work to do tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. You've been listening to Sarah Talk.
Bye. Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@SarahTalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. The opinions and information provided on this show are intended for entertainment purposes only. All opinions are solely that of the hosts and their guests. We make no representations as to accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or validity of any information and will not be liable for any errors or damages. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.